Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, talking to you about the events of 2023. And thanks to the guys at the Know Thyself podcast, as usual. Yay. Thank you for helping me out and spreading the word about me. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about that's going on, and a lot of planets are changing direction right now, which isn't the worst thing. It's just, you have to kind of pivot and you feel the energy move here, and then this one moves, and there's a lot of adapting. That can be stressful for some people. And just with like the going back to school stuff, if you're caught up in that, and just change of seasons, it just can be a little disruptive. Not the worst thing that ever happened to anybody. But let's talk about Venus going direct, because I'm doing this a little bit late on the 6th of September. So about 2 days ago, Venus went direct. It went retrograde in late July, went retrograde in Leo. It's going to continue to be in Leo until October 9th, actually, 8th or 9th. And so we're still in the Leo energy, but Venus finally going forward, it is a lot about, like even the retrograde, about standing up for your values. And that can be with finances, with relationships, with your own self-esteem, and it can strengthen relationships. But if there's cracks in relationships, it really shows you where the cracks are, and the cracks are usually about differences in value system. And that could be about financial or political, or about each other's parents, or where your lives are going in the future, all sorts of stuff, values. And so it's not to say all relationships are breaking up, but it definitely can show where there needs to be more kind of bridges between those differences, and not to pretend the differences aren't there, and not to be, the bad part of Venus can be like, oh, it doesn't matter, we're in love, but it does matter. When Venus retrogrades, it's like, well, these dissimilarities do matter. It doesn't mean it's a done deal, but it means we need to address it and not just be like, kind of putting a haze over it or something, or some sort of illusion. So especially in Leo, which is like that sun blazing through those clouds, or the filter, Venus, like, oh, I'm just so beautiful with my filter on my Instagram pictures or whatever, is kind of Venus. And the sun, Leo being the sun, is like, what's really here, what's really going on, it can be real and still be good. It doesn't have to look perfect and to be good, so it's the great message of that, Venus being in Leo. So even if you are not a Leo, or have moon in Leo, or rising Leo, whatever, it's still affecting everybody. And it can be inspiring. It can be reinvigorating yourself in terms of fashion, or friendships, or arts, music, and feeling really alive. So it's kind of neat that it's been in Leo for so long, because normally Venus is just in a sign for about a month. So we've had it really since the beginning of, partly through June, and then it almost went out of Leo, then retrograded, and now we're still going forward, still in Leo. So kind of enjoying that passionate part of things, and again, making sure that you're in relationships that you can each be existing with joy, and don't have to pretend problems aren't there. So at the same time, Venus going direct, Jupiter stops to go backwards. And again, outer planets, let's just say Jupiter's an outer planet. Think of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as the other outer planets. But Jupiter and Saturn also only retrograde once a year and go forward once a year, like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So it's not the biggest deal that it is retrograde, but when the planets shift, it's like, oh, okay. And one of the things with Jupiter, it kind of is similar in a way to Venus, that it is about value system and finances and things like that, but your like real belief in what makes life worth living is Jupiter. And so that in relationships especially, it doesn't have to be romantic relationships. This could be a relationship with your boss, or with your family and money issues or something. But it keeps that theme going of, we want to make sure we have alignment in our values, and how can we create bridges there, and make sure each voice is heard within that sort of compromise, or even if it's not compromise, it's co-synergy or something. So it isn't like we're like, phew, that theme's over. Like the Jupiter's like, okay, here's this too. But also Jupiter retrograde is a great time for getting back to your yoga practice, to your meditation practice. If you have kids and the kids are back in school and they have a little more time for your spiritual practices, because Jupiter represents like the seeking quality that we have. So, reading books that you want to get to, or maybe just planning out what your individual spiritual goals are, and making that more of a priority and saying, I really miss this. I really want to get back to this. So that retrograde can help with that. Then this is more late August, and I probably mentioned it last month, but the planet Uranus slowed down to also go backwards last few days of August. So it's been like, retrograde, direct, and all these different planets shifting. So, and, I live down in Florida, and planets are doing things. Weather's happening all over the place all the time, but it was like with the hurricane, it was coming up the coast. I was like, Uranus turning retrograde. Sometimes when Uranus changes signs, there can be a lot of storms. So in the summer, bad thunderstorms and things like that. And I was like, okay, so that happened, and it was fine in my area pretty much. But it can create kind of storms in your subconscious, and because it's the Venus and Jupiter, it's like, I want to make sure my needs are met. I want to make sure, because Uranus, I'm an individual within this relationship. It's not enough to just blend and say it's okay, which is more of Jupiter, and Venus can be like, yeah, it's fine. But Uranus is like, no, it's not. We have to make sure my uniqueness is represented within this partnership. So that can have caused some disruption over the week of then Venus going direct, of like, I really mean it. I need to be me here, and you need to be you. And that we're healthier when we're individuals. But, and again, some relationships, though, are built so much on codependence that there really isn't a way to coexist when you take the illusion away of we're not the same person. So that's where some of that disruptions come from. But also it can be aha moments around finances. I really need to be on a budget, or even with health and eating, really seeing like it's time to get back to, again, like if the Jupiter was like back to your spiritual practices, it could be back to doing what I know is good for me. And like, how did I get so off the mark? And so Uranus turning retrograde can be a really good thing like that. And to watch out for just being mean to yourself about some things, like that inner storm, Now Uranus is retrograde, for like 6 months, so don't worry about it being retrograde. It's just that turning direction. And even Jupiter doesn't go direct until, like New Year's Eve. So the being retrograde isn't as much as the turning around and the recommitment, to the self. So, okay. Now, Mercury's retrograde. That also went retrograde a little earlier in August, well, the third week of August, before the Uranus did, but still it was part of this whole mix. And since Mercury's only retrograde for 3 weeks at a time, okay, now Mercury will go direct in the middle of September, which is great. Mercury has retrograded in Virgo, which potentially could be the most annoying planet for people to experience Mercury retrograde in who don't like Mercury retrograde, because Virgo likes things to be in order, and Mercury retrograde is like, whoa, sometimes things get very out of order. And but there also can be, again, this kind of whole theme about like, how do I like when my life runs smoothly? And when it isn't there, I really notice that it isn't there, and I want to make an effort to not feel constrained by a schedule, but have like dynamic flow in my life, where things sort of happen and unfold really more smoothly. And you can set your life up in certain ways to have that happen. And especially in terms of diet, it's interesting. Diet, nutrition, exercise stuff is very Virgo-y as well. And how that can attune you to spiritual growth. And even things like sleeping enough and, good health practices that make you feel spiritually more connected, So the Mercury retrograding in Virgo can be about that as well. What's interesting is when it does go forward, which is like the 13th, 14th of September, we're having a new moon at the time. So Mercury goes direct, and there's a sun and moon together, and the sun and moon are opposite Neptune, which is confusing. Neptune can be a planet when it's doing challenging things like opposing planets. It can be confused. Mercury changing direction. It's like, I was thinking, I hate taking naps because I wake up in the day. Why is it the day? Or it's just turning dusk. And I'm like, is it the morning? What's happening? I feel weird. It is weird. And so that whole few days there in the middle of September is weird because not only does Mercury change direction, that can be a little funny, but then you got that new moon with the Neptune, which is like, what's going on? Where am I? And so it's not a great time to be like dealing with other people about what's the decision, or writing deadlines or work deadlines or things can be challenging. Maybe to kind of cut yourself a little slack within there and other people a little bit of slack. Because answers can come out and clarity can come out of it, maybe not in those few days of, like, say, the 12th to the 16th. And it is kind of a time to just sort of maybe observe and just not draw conclusions, which is one of those things when Mercury is in Virgo. Like, I want to know the answer. And, oh, this means this. And it's like, oh, wait, no, it means that. Oh, so there's a lot of scrambling feeling. And it's like, if I just keep observing how things are moving and shifting and then make a decision, maybe later, like around the 20th of September, if possible, But it is an interesting time for dreams, if you like note your dreams, or I know people take more B vitamins, especially B6. It's an interesting fact about B6, I have a nutrition degree, that if you don't have good dream recall, you can be low in B6, and just taking some B6 can be interesting if you're seeking answers from your internal self. So it could be deeper meditation, having these dreams, and again, maybe just sitting with it. Like, it might not be clear, but then the wisdom of it unfolds, over another week or so. But it's kind of a good time for interior, kind of like, whoa, exploring, We don't have to have the answer, But then you'll see, oh, that was an interesting inspiration that led me to an answer. So, okay, and then the other thing is Mars in Libra, which I might have mentioned because it started the very last few days of August. But Mars in Libra is really, and it's a very relationship-oriented month, because Mars is where the energy is put, and Libra, of course, is relationships, and Venus is connected to Libra, so all that Venus retrograde and all of that. And even Jupiter is kind of linked in with Venus as a higher octave of Venus, so then we got the Mars in Libra. So people really feeling like, I want to be clear about things. I want to know where marriage is going. Where's this relationship going? And so that, again, pans out better the second half of September, is pushing for answers. It could just be noting, like, knowing this is my passion, this is my need, and then seeing where that's possible. Maybe it becomes more clear the second half of the month, but ultimatums and things like that are difficult, during the first half of September. And even if it's like, you're totally sure about somebody, it's like, just keep an open mind, and because sometimes that Mars is like rushing in over eagerly into situations too, not just give me what I want and I'm crashing the door, but it's like if someone's got the door open, it's like, yeah, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, is this really fitting me? So it's like proceed with caution time, but a lot of richness there, and you find that you come back to your original deep core thing. It isn't really something new. It's something you could have re-embraced with passion, but it's kind of like something that's always been there, kind of thing. So, all right, so that is the month of September. And if you want to get in touch with me, best thing, you could call me. I do have the information below my YouTube here, 248-583-1663, or you can find me through my website, alunamichaels.com, or my Gmail, aluna3366@gmail. That's below my YouTube. And so, yeah, so hang in there. Oh, and there's also my book that's on my website or Amazon Kindle, The Spiritual Gifts of the 12 Astrological Signs. And just hang there. It's going to be a good month, but just be with the process of it. So bye-bye for now.